How do you figure out pricing for your service-based business, and where do you even begin? This can be difficult for people in all stages of their business, whether they're starting out, whether they've had an existing business, or even if they've been in it for years and years. Because certain services are very broad on the spectrum, and so prices can vary depending on what you're offering. So I'm gonna share 6 steps that you can take right now that will help you find the perfect price for your business. First step is to just throw a random number out there. Before you do any research, before you do any data, I would get my initial reaction of what I think this service would be valued at. So I'd just get a piece of paper or a note on your phone, think about everything that the service entails and what you would like to get in return. Then write that number down and see how you feel about it. If you're just starting out and you haven't had a sale yet, I would do this in 2 different ways. First, I would do the number that I would like to get to eventually. After I've had experience and I'm capable of doing the service, find that ideal price of what I would like to eventually start charging. Then I would take that number and go backwards and find what number do I think that this is valued for someone who's just getting started. This number will swing any which way depending on who you're talking about. A lot of people in the beginning tend to really undervalue themselves, but I think overall, just getting your first initial gut reaction, what you think the service is valued at, is very valuable to begin with. Now that you've got that initial number of what you think it's valued at or what you want it to be valued at, now it's time to go look for some information and data. Now I'm gonna use an example that you're trying to sell a bunch of bananas. If you were to sell bananas, but you wanted to sell bananas at $8 a pound. Now if you just go out there and say, I'm gonna sell these bananas for $8, you're probably gonna have very little to no buyers. That is because there is a perceived value of bananas in the world. If I'm selling my brand of bananas in the store for $8 a pound and the other guy is selling his bananas in the store for 80 cents a pound, I would say 99% of people will opt with the 80-cent bananas over the $8 bananas because people have an understanding of what bananas are worth. So does that mean your dream of selling bananas for $8 a pound is crushed? Probably, just ethically speaking. But if you want to sell bananas for $8, then you're going to have to differentiate yourself or create more of a rarity than a commodity. But it will need you to differentiate yourself to justify the value of the $8 bananas. And this can be done through a lot of different things, but the most common is through rarity. If your item or if your service is a commodity, then the price of it is probably going to be lower. If your service is more of a rarity, then scarcity is a great indicator of cost. Okay, so the second step in all this is to go to the old and trusted Google. I know that is a cliche and there's a stigma associated with Googling things and basing all of your information off of what Google says because you can't always trust the internet. But I think Google is the most logical and easiest place to just get a number. But because the internet is so wide and vast, you're going to find a lot of different numbers. But today with AI technology, like using Google's Gemini, ChatGPT, or Perplexity that I like using for data information, it can scour and search the web for you and find information. So I would go to Google and you will probably have a generated AI response that will pull up with a number. Then I go to my AI tool of choice, which would either be ChatGPT or Perplexity, and I would get more specific within my prompt. I would talk about the niche that I'm in or the market that I'm in and where I'm trying to scale to, and it can give me more information about who I'm trying to reach and what they'd be willing to pay. Now we're not gonna stop there because I would not base my conclusion on what Google says. So the next step is I would go to subreddits or Facebook groups and find people who are talking about this topic. Whatever industry you're in, I guarantee that there are people on the internet who are talking about what it costs and what the price is of your service. And the third step leads into the fourth step, and that is to get both the buyer's opinions and the seller's opinions of the service. And so that you can get both ends of the spectrum. If you spend all your time with the sellers, then you're gonna see all these big numbers that they're throwing out and that they're charging, and your perception and value of the service is gonna go through the roof. On the flip side, if you spend your time only with the buyers, and you're going to be seeing all the lowball offers, and then you're going to send out lowball offers, and then you're going to really undervalue the service that you're providing. And so with both perspectives, you can really find the middle ground. So after you've scoured and gotten the internet's opinion, the fifth step is to get specific with people that you know who are in the industry. This goes to networking and needing to have social skills. But if you go and find someone who's in your industry that you respect and approach them and you ask very nicely to understand what their pricing structure is and how they got to that point, I think you'd be surprised to hear how many people would be willing to share those numbers with you. This is more of my experience about being in a creative field, and it's something that I really like about the creative field, that your competition doesn't feel as competitive as it does in other fields of business. And I think it's good to understand what people are charging because it helps set the market value. So if someone's charging $3,000 for a video, but you're charging $250, then that overall is going to hurt the market. If you sell diamonds and you sell them for 75% less than anybody else, then you hurt the entire diamond market. The sixth and final step, very similar to the fifth step, but is to find your competitors and to ask them directly. It's easier for me in Phoenix to ask somebody in Houston what they're charging because we're in different markets. But if I ask someone in Phoenix in my local market what they're charging, they may not be as willing to share those numbers because they see me as a direct competitor. So I'm not saying you are going to get a response, because depending on how people feel, they may not want to share those numbers with you. They might view that you're just trying to undercut their pricing and take a large percentage of their business. So if you're going to approach these people, then I would definitely try to do it in a very non-confrontational way that just says, I'm not trying to undercut or undermine your business. I'm just trying to see what the fair market value is in this market. Now this one I only think works if you're a freelancer or an individual and you're asking another freelancer individual. I probably wouldn't recommend this if you're an agency and you're asking another agency. You could probably do your own discretion and what you feel. I don't know if I personally would ask a different agency if I had employees, that they had employees, and understanding what they're charging, what that is, because that is a lot more competitive. There's just more at stake when you have multiple employees, because people are a lot more buttoned up about what information they give out. But you can always try and find their previous clients that they've worked with and get an understanding of what they are paying for, because they're going to be a lot more willing to share those numbers than probably the agency is going to be. And if you do sales, then you're going to be talking to people who have been doing research and have been shopping for their service, and they've probably talked to your competitor, and they've probably gotten a quote from them, and you're going to find a lot of that information over time the more sales you do. So take all of these steps, combine it together, and come up with a final number that you think your service is valued at. So take that number and go back to step one and compare it against that first initial number that you threw out and see where it lays with it. Do you like the number? Do you wish it was higher? Do you wish it was lower? If you wish that it was higher, then you might need to go into your offer and change it and create more of a unique offer, and it has a higher value associated with it. Okay, that's it for today's video. I hope you found it valuable. If you did, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a like, and check out my video from last week where I talk about the 7 Chrome extensions that I use every day within my business.